All right. I think we are going to hit the start stream button and we're not going to delay too much long. So, hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another stream. And as you can see by the title, we got more College Football 25 news since the game's coming out in about a month from now, which I'm excited for. I've said on past streams that, I have a bit of a history, a bit of a nostalgia factor when it comes to college football games. One of my favorite pastimes that I love to do all the time was when I would go on break for Thanksgiving break or winter break, whatever, when I was in college. I would go back home, boot up my old Xbox 360, avoid the red ring of death, and then do a Dynasty or new Road to Glory, whatever. And that was amazing. Life could not have been more peak, could not have been more perfect. And we finally, after a decade, are now getting college football games back. Now, I've said my concerns when the trailer released that I am worried about it being a Madden reskin. I'm worried about, the gameplay features. I'm worried about, the fact that Ultimate Team exists, so now there's going to be like a gambling simulator card aspect in College Football 25, which sucks because, that's why I'm personally going to, college football games. That's not why I'm playing it. So the fact that there's an Ultimate Team mode in college football sucks because that's not why we're playing the game. At least personally, not for me. So that I'm worried about, but we got some new news about the gameplay stuff, so we're going to be reacting to it. And this is going to be a little special stream. I don't know if you guys can see that, but... Oh, just forgetting the U. But I am a Mizzou alum, as you can see by my diploma right here. So I'm a Mizzou alum. I'm saying that because when college football does come out, we will be streaming the game. And I feel like the first thing we'll be doing is hopping into whether a quick game, Road to Glory, Dynasty, but something Mizzou related just to see what Faroe feels like in the College Football 25 environment when it comes to the sound, the fight song, the fireworks, gameplay aspect, because apparently people have played the game early and they said that the crowd aspect is amazing. So me personally as a Mizzou alum, I want to see what my alma mater is like in College Football 25. And we are saying all the Mizzou stuff because something we will be wearing for the stream today, but also more importantly, when we do the Dynasty Road to Glory stream when the College Football 25 comes out, is this. I feel like I will more likely be wearing this when we do the Dynasty stuff because this is as you can see, a Mizzou blazer. And I feel like a blazer is more professional looking for like a, GM Dynasty mode as opposed to Road to Glory. But very minimum, when we have the College Football 25 stream, we'll be wearing this. And we'll also be wearing this for the stream today, just as a little tease for what's to come in the future. So enough introduction out of the way. Let's hop into the reaction and hear about the gameplay aspect because I feel like that's what people care about more than anything is the gameplay, especially is it a Madden reskin? I was thinking, just looking at this in the camera, just the blazer looks really funny. I love it. Anyway, let's hop in. All right. I'm hoping everything's going to sound all good. All right, because that's my main worry when it comes to reaction streams because, I don't want the, video to be playing too loud or too quiet where it drowns on my voice or you can't even hear it. So, okay.
What's up, everyone? I am not the expert. I played College Football 25 early, and to be honest, there's some things in College Football 25 that I feel is lacking and has me worried. I'm talking about...
Great start. College Football 25, a game that college football fans have been dying for. We've been so in a drought, right? We've been so thirsty. We've been such a drought over a decade of college football games where you go into Amazon, eBay right now, the latest college football game that released College Football 2014, NCAA Football 14, I guess I should say, it costs like $300, $400, right? For a game that was made over a decade ago. And for the first game in the series to come back after a decade, I'm hearing the words, I am worried. Not a good start.
Things in gameplay, Road to Glory, Dynasty, all of it. I will go more in depth later on in this video, but basically EA flew me down to their studio in Orlando, along with other creators and media members. I want to be clear though, I am not here to advertise for EA. I think people are skeptical of what I have to say about the game simply because EA offered me the experience to play the game early. You know, they're putting you up in a hotel, giving you the special experience. So I totally understand that perspective. But I do want to make it clear that my opinion is my own. I'm not like a bot advertisement. No one is giving me a script of what to say. I remain critical in my feedback because I want college football video gaming to be great.
Yeah. I mean, that just goes to like any time YouTubers or I guess content creators should say, because apparently TikTokers also get flown out for major game releases or whatever. But that's always a concern. And it's not just, EA, 2K is the same deal where, you fly out content creators to test out the game, see what the game is all about early and everything. They, obviously go back to their fan base and they say what the game's all about and everything. And the number one worry is, are you hyping up the game so much just because you got flown out there and you're required in your contract to promote the game and say it's perfect and everything because, well, you got the opportunity to, play and everything. So now you have to say that's good and everything, even if it may not be true. Because that's something that 2K's had issue with for years. Ever since they've flown out, YouTubers to play the newest 2K about 2 weeks before the game releases. Yeah, because normally that happens the end of August. And YouTubers, come back and share their thoughts on the game. Most of the time they say the game is really good, really polished and everything. Gamers like us who didn't get flown out to, play the game early, we play it on launch. We see it and it's a reskin. A lot of the, BS animations that played the previous game, they're still in the new one. So it's one of those things where it's like, are you saying your legitimate opinion or is the company forcing your hand, at gunpoint, hey, you have to say our game is perfect because, we flew you out here, so you have to thank us. So that's always a worry. So when it comes to YouTubers sharing their thoughts and gameplay reviews before a game comes out, to me, take it with a grain of salt.
I tell the devs my fears of what could go wrong and what they need to change in the future, which is another reason why I'm going to be critical in this video. There's things missing the mark that has me worried for the game as a whole. And shocker, College Football 25 is not a perfect game, and I will explain some things and some shortcomings that I've noticed. While I will share my thoughts, this is not a comprehensive review. It's just early impressions from the presentation they gave us to the creators and about 4 hours of gameplay experience that I had in play now when down at the studio. There are also things a lot of people are misinterpreting about the game that I want to clarify, especially about Wear and Tear, Road to Glory, and Dynasty. And there's a huge list of things I want to talk about in this video. You can probably see by the length of it, so I'll just run down the list, starting with gameplay.
This is what I honestly care about more than anything. Is the gameplay good? Because I can get by, the gambling card simulator that is Ultimate Team that unfortunately is going to put in. I can get by, Road to Glory, unfortunately not having a high school mode, which sucks. I hate that it's not have a high school mode. But I can get past all those shortcomings, all those L's in my opinion, if the gameplay is good. Right? That's the most important. If the gameplay is good, I and everyone else will be playing it because, well, there's reason to come back because the gameplay is good. If the gameplay is not good, and you have the stuff like the Ultimate Team Carbine Simulator, then you have someone like Madden where there was no point in playing the game to begin with.
So with gameplay, everyone's initial thoughts is does College Football 25 feel like Madden?
Say it. Does it?
The simple answer is no, I didn't feel that way at all.
Okay. That's a relief.
My experience with Madden gameplay is it's stiff, it's annoying, and just generally not fun to play.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself.
No, look.
If you need a Cliff Notes summary of what Madden gameplay is like, 100%. I've said this when we are reacting to the first College Football trailer, how the issue with Madden is you never feel like you have control over anything that happens to you as the player, right? Whether you're the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, anyone in offense, whatever, it feels like you're constantly being sucked in animation, sucked into a vacuum, a black hole, when there's a defender in your proximity, which that just doesn't make it fun if, as long as their defender nets to you or within close proximity of you, you go down, and that's just not fun. It doesn't allow the user to have any stick skills, any user juke moves, spin moves, anything. A defender's nearby, you're sucked into an animation, you get tackled, which it's not fun to play.
He's frozen again. I can't move. And Madden gameplay has a variety of issues, but I feel the superhuman corners to be like the most annoying, and it seems like contested passes always end up in interceptions. They're like looking the opposite way too, and they just turn around and always snag it. It's just, you know what I'm talking about if you played Madden. It's annoying that way. But with College Football 25, I, like everybody else, was worried, like, is this going to be a Madden reskin is kind of like the main talking point. And before I saw the gameplay, that was going through my mind. Once I got my hands on the game though, I did not get that sense whatsoever. This really shouldn't be a surprise, but this was, without a doubt, the best the Frostbite engine has ever felt. And that's coming from somebody who has not enjoyed the gameplay experience from every single Madden game on that engine, which is all the more reason why this game seems to get it right.
I don't know what it is about EA with the Frostbite engine, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, EA's been using the Frostbite engine since like what, Madden 15 or something like that, Madden 14. I want to say Madden 14 or 15. It's one of those two. Once again, I keep getting the years mixed up. But that was the first year that, EA's been using the Frostbite engine, was like one of those years. And they're hyping up like, oh, we're using the Frostbite engine because it's, the engine that EA manufacturer made themselves. So, when Madden makes an improvement, which is not a thing nowadays, or when FIFA makes an improvement, those other games get to benefit like, oh, FIFA got this, implementation for gameplay because, using the Frostbite engine, they're now able to easily just copy and paste the code into Madden. And that was a huge deal at the time. But nowadays, with how Madden games are nowadays, EA's not making FIFA games anymore. It feels like at that point, like, why does EA even use a Frostbite engine at this point? Because that seems like something that people complain about for years. Like, the Frostbite engine is delayed. It's way outdated. It's not good anymore. So, like, why do they use it? It feels like, honestly, to the point where, I don't know, someone at EA feels like they're, robbing people at gunpoint, where it's like, you must use the Frostbite engine. We know the Frostbite engine is not good, but we have to use it. Right? So, College Football 25 using Frostbite and it being good, taking it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt.
College Football 25's gameplay feels, I guess, loose is the way I would describe it, in a good way. Like, it felt like I could run the ball without being suction cupped to the defensive line. You know what I'm talking about.
Which is good, right? Because, that's literally what I was complaining about earlier. That, whenever you're on offense, it feels like you're always, suction cupped, vacuumed, black holed into a defender no matter what, which just isn't fun. It makes the game really repetitive and really annoying because everyone plays the same way and defenders always feel the same way. It doesn't matter if you have a 60 overall running back or a 99 overall Justin Jefferson, you're always getting tackled the same way, and there's no difference between low overalls and high overalls, which is very, very annoying. It's kind of why I've not played Madden since like Madden 19, because for that reason, it all feels repetitive. Now, here in College Football 25 is more loose than, stiff Madden, is good. However, I am worried about it because, how loose is too loose, right? Like, I don't want the offense to be so loose, so broken, so overpowered, where there's not even a point to even have a defense out there because the offense will always be superior, right? That's my main issue. Like, don't make the offense too stupidly overpowered where there's no point in having a defense out there because the offense is going to score because they're just that much more dominant.
I did not notice any overpowered cornerbacks in my gameplay. 50-50 balls actually felt like a 50-50, and the improved passing trajectory is one of my favorite improvements in the game. It really opens up avenues for all sorts of throws that were completely impossible in past games.
I also hope that this catch and run, this shot meter, I guess you can say, from they're pulling from 2K, because apparently Call of 2025 pulled some developers from 2K to make this game. I am hoping that for this meter that you can see right here, it's now in the red bar. I am hoping that there's a setting, a toggle or something that you can turn it off. I don't want to see this meter in any Road to Glory, Dynasty mode, quick game, online game, whatever. I do not want to see this meter. Right? If I can have a College Football 25 game where the meter is not a requirement, we can just switch it off, that is amazing. Because I feel like look at the meter is going to get very annoying and very repetitive. Right? There's going to be so many times where, let's say I'm, using the meter and I throw to a receiver and it's in like the, yellow tier, like the 50-50 ball. And a corner is able to split open and, Usain Bolt to the ball. And then all of a sudden it's now in the red. When it's annoying, right? Like when I released it was in the yellow, it should be a 50-50 ball. Or even better, and just for a corner to Usain Bolt and turn to the red, kind of annoying, right? So I'm hoping that the shot meter is not a requirement. It's built into the game where you have to use it because otherwise I'll be playing College Football 25 a lot less than I think. So please tell me we can turn off this meter. I don't want to see it. It's not good to look at, hopefully.
I'll give an example. Like a fade route is now a viable option. You could also layer the football in between defenders. It just feels so much smoother. And you also see examples of this in the trailer. Like we see the deep ball from Jalen Milroe to the back of the end zone, which is awesome to see that. You could also see this LSU throw to the wide receiver on the sidelines, putting it to where only the receiver can make a play on the ball. That's very pretty stuff. I love to see that. I also reacted positively on Twitter in my community post saying that I enjoyed the gameplay experience and
I played College Football 25. EA flew me down last week. I played the game for about 4 hours. I can't mention too many specifics yet, but first impressions, absolutely incredible. Okay. But yeah. Like, getting back to shot me, I'm going to keep calling it that. Like, I should not have to, green release some 2K just to be able to pass if I'm a quarterback. Right? I shouldn't have to. If I want to turn the meter off, I should, as a player, get the ability to do so.
Some people seem to not believe me that I'm some like EA shill or something, but come on guys, when we look at the history between NCAA games versus the Madden games, I think pretty much every case NCAA has had the more enjoyable on-the-field experience than every Madden game. I don't think that's really a hot take either. In a lot of cases, I would argue the better off-the-field depth as well. Like there's a reason people love NCAA and missed it when it was gone. And I'm not saying any of those games were perfect, not even close. And I'm not saying College Football 25 is perfect either, but it is light years above Madden 24 in the gameplay sense. And on my first initial experience, I thought the gameplay was damn good. But there's a reason it's only initial experiences. I only had 4 hours of gameplay. That's not really enough to make a full opinion. But Drewski, quit just glossing up the game. Let's talk about other things that I noticed. We saw in the gameplay there are some bugs in there for sure. Like we saw one play where this guy's pants are turning the other color. I can get over that. This was an older build, obviously, that they used for the trailer. And this is not going to be reflected on the final release. At least you hope, right? But there are some legitimate questions people raised about certain plays in there, like these corners doing a quick spin around to intercept the ball, or some other players like missing blocks and stuff. And for that, I'll say this. I'm not expecting the gameplay to be absolutely perfect. I obviously don't want things to feel completely unrealistic or out of whack or anything that would like break my immersion, but I'm not some maniac expecting this to be a shot-for-shot recreation of real-life football, if that makes sense. I think in reality, I 100% recreation of true life football, I don't even know if it'd be that fun. Like, I appreciate realism when possible, but to an extent, because overall, I just want the game to be fun. Like I said, it's a video game.
I will say, though, if I'm in a dynasty and I've recruited 4 5-star recruit offensive linemen, I should feel like I have 4 5-star offensive linemen protecting me. Instead of, feeling like Joe Burrow in his rookie year, where I, as a quarterback, have no time to pass the ball because the defenders are always slipping through like butter. Like, I should feel like I have 4 or 5-star offensive line protection as opposed to nothing. And on the flip side, if I don't recruit heavily graded offensive linemen, they should be able to blow by the offensive linemen that much more easy, and I should be a way more pressure. I feel like that's something that Madden has also struggled with at the line where offensive, defensive line, it feels like defensive line are always able to slip through like butter way too easily. Doesn't matter who the offensive line is. So that's another hope.
I could nitpick about whether this specific interaction over here is messy or that block was off. I'm not really interested in breaking any of those things down personally. I feel like my experiences, or I guess not my experience because not the expert, but from my view, I feel like I'm best served talking about the features and the depth of the other modes. To sum it all up, I feel College Football 25 gameplay was better than just good enough, you know? I talked about a few negative things there, but let's talk about some of the promising animations I saw. In my gameplay experience, I immediately noticed the unique throwing animations. They felt fresh. I also liked the skill moves that they showcased in the trailer. But one thing in my personal experience, I liked how the left stick gameplay felt. It felt especially smooth in this game. The simplest way I could describe it is it felt like I could soft juke, if that makes sense. I could zigzag around players without needing the right stick to like juke, which that gave me some NCAA 14 vibes in that respect. However, that's enough on gameplay. I want to talk about presentation, and then later on we're going to move to Road to Glory and Dynasty. With presentation, I already talked about the scoreboard. I like that.
I feel like I should have said this before, but can we go back to this hurdle move? Looking like Saquon Barkley? Because I want to call attention to this. I feel like I should have said this already.
With presentation.
Okay. I want to call attention to this hurdle. Looking like Saquon Barkley against my Chicago Bears.
I already talked about the scoreboard.
Okay. I'm going to pause it right here. I am hoping for a gameplay aspect, especially an online. I'm hoping that it takes skill to do a move like this. This is not a common occurrence, and this is not something that happens fairly regularly. This is just something that should happen once in a blue moon. Because in real life, same thing. You don't see people hurdle people all the time. But once in a blue moon, yeah, you'll see it hurdle. But if this happens frequently, and I'm the defensive player number 3, something, I'm assuming 30 or whatever. But if I'm the defensive player right here, and the person I'm playing online against hurdles me nonstop and it's fairly regularly, that is a moment where controllers will be chucked at screens and out windows. If this is something that happens fairly regularly, this should be something that happens once in a blue moon and should be because of user skill and timing. It shouldn't be something that's rewarded to you nonstop. Because otherwise, that is a game-breaking aspect that I promise you will get annoying very quickly.
I like that. I think most people do. And we even do have some confirmation that records will be under the team names on the scoreboard during Dynasty mode, which is cool. And if you didn't know, there's like college football revamped guys that were hired to be on the dev team for College Football 25, which I think is an awesome decision. And you can see influences from college football revamped all over the game. And I can tell just by talking to the devs in the studio that their presence elevated this game massively. Like the team select menu is absolutely beautiful. And when you compare it to NCAA 14, this is an unbelievable upgrade. But I do want to clarify one question I saw on Reddit about these little signs that pop up in team select. These are only cosmetic and are basically just there to show your teams like readied up. Some people thought they were like alternate logos you could use in game, but that is not the case. I do appreciate some little details, like in team select you're able to sort by conferences, which is nice because you used to have to be able to like sort alphabetically, which would take quite a while. I think focusing on quality of life things is a nice touch. I'm glad they're considering that. I felt the menus in this game were massively quicker than in recent Maddens. Like we all know the Madden menus were so slow and it made the game honestly a chore to play. Like there's a lot of times I would try to record content for this game and I would just quit simply because I was bored going in between the menus, like not even making it to the game. So I was happy to see that they improved this for College Football 25. If I had to speculate, I imagine this is a symptom of it being only on next gen consoles instead of like being on PS4 and PS5. No matter the reason, I dig it.
As we know, Madden 25 is still releasing on the PS4 and Xbox One, which I don't know why EA does that, right? I don't know why games are still being released on the PS4 and Xbox One because, you know, at this point, PS5s, Xbox One Series X, all those next-gen consoles, they're not even next-gen anymore. They're current-gen consoles. Like, it's been over 4 years. Scalpers, restock alerts are no longer an issue. You can go to Walmart right now. I can literally leave stream right now, walk out the door, head over to my local Walmart, and walk in with the new PS5, and then walk out that door. Right? Scalpers and all that stuff is no longer an issue. So if you don't have a PS5 Red Spots 1 series that's at this point, then just wait for the PS6 or whatever the Red Spots 1 is going to be called. Right? Don't release stuff on the PS4 Red Spots 1 because there's just no point. They're over a decade old at this point.
I also want to talk about some other details people might not know about, specifically for presentation. So in the little PowerPoint they showed us at EA, they showed us a recreation of the Mo Bamba at Penn State thing in game. The one that they recreated in-game was incredible. It was absolutely epic. The stadium pulse maxed out. The screen was shaking. I legitimately got goosebumps watching it, and I think everybody else in the room did too. I think I remember turning over to Bengal, who was sitting next to me, and I think I said out loud, "Damn, that was cool." So this game...
That'll be cool. Because let's see. Songs we know that will be in College Football 25. As you know, we know Mo Bamba is going to be in the game. We know Darude Sandstorm's going to be in it. I don't know. I don't think Enter Sandman's going to be in it because I think people were complaining about that one. That's not being in the game. I don't think Jump Around isn't in either. So, rip if you're Wisconsin. And I don't know. I would assume Welcome to the Jungle is in the game since they use that song in the trailer, but we'll see. But yeah, that iconic moment where it was Michigan Penn State and the first play of the game, it got so loud where Michigan called a timeout on the first play of the entire game is insanity. And such an iconic moment in the college football lore. And I can just imagine, when I create, my Mizzou Road to Glory freshman, whatever, going into Alabama or Georgia or Texas, Oklahoma, going into that environment on the road. Imagine if we get that kind of experience where we have to call timeout on our first drive of the game because the stadium pulse is going so loud. That will be crazy. Even if I'm on the receiving end, the short end of the stick where I'm the one getting freaked out because the stadium's going that loud, that will be insanity because that's just what happens in real life. Where, there's a reason why, Alabama, Georgia, stadiums that I've actually been to for those games, they're crazy. There's a reason why they're seen as the loudest and most daunting stadiums to play in if you're a college football freshman or just college football player in general. There's a reason they get that identity. So if we get on the receiving end of that kind of stuff, that will be so cool. Even if we're on the flip side, we're the one being terrified. Because just imagine, from a dynasty perspective, you create a 2-star school or something like that, a low-tier program, and you build them up to be a powerhouse where they're the new Alabama, they're the new dynasty. And instead of, going to Alabama or whatever and being a 2-star program and you getting, afraid of the stadium pulse being the top ranked, now your dynasty, now your program is the toughest program to play in college football. So now any team going to your home environment, now your stadium pulse is matched and everything. And just imagine if you're able to customize what song you play on a crucial third down or whatever, that will be so cool. And I'm hoping, just to add a sense of immersion and just, replayability factor, if you're able to do stuff like that, Dynasty will be really, really fun if you're able to do that. That's hopeful thinking right there.
Game absolutely nails the atmosphere aspect. However, I must state that my headphones at my gameplay station was not working. So when I was playing, I could not hear audio from my gameplay session. But even though I couldn't hear anything, the visual presentation of like the traditions, the player reactions, the fans, all of that, like the mascots, everything, it was incredible. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this. This is probably the best atmosphere I've ever seen in a football video game. For an example, I played with Auburn, my alma mater. I'll read off the tweet that I put out for this, describing my experience. First game in College Football 25 was beautiful. I played with Auburn football in Jordan-Hare Stadium. The atmosphere was insane. First time seeing the Eagle Flight, the team run out, the mega video board, which is also the first time we've ever seen that in the video game. Seeing Aubie, the student section, I shed a tear, man. It's like I was at home with my alma mater. Hashtag War Eagle. Like seriously, it was
Chat, when we do the Mizzou stuff, I'm hoping it's fun. Once again, I don't know if EA will do it because obviously for Mizzou at Faurot Field, they do the song Bring 'Em Out. And that would be cool just for a sense of immersion if they do that in College Football 25. I don't know though because like I said, Bring 'Em Out is not a song that I've heard confirmed that'll be in the game, but imagine if you hear Bring 'Em Out if you're playing at Mizzou Dynasty or whatever, like I will be doing. That'll be cool. Coming out from the south end zone and everything. Yeah. That'll be sick. Truman the Tiger standing on top of the brick post with the student section, waving the Tiger towels. God, that'll be so cool. And also, Mizzou used Welcome to the Jungle as well in their opening kickoff song and everything, so maybe we get to hear it. If so, I may shed a tear if that kind of environment, pitch perfect, is in College Football 25. We'll see, though. Once again, just like I say with the whole Dynasty where you're able to do the custom songs, you're able to build them up from a 2-star program to an elite program where you now have the highest, most intense crowd environment. Wishful thinking for Mizzou, from my alma mater. I hope they canonically get that stuff accurate because if so, this game's going to be fun.
Truly special. They nailed the details. And as far as my understanding, they did that with all 134 teams in the game. However, the community noticed some slip-ups there in that gameplay trailer. They said the Red River rivalry, you got the fans on the wrong side. You're supposed to flip-flop them.
Interesting.
Or how about Texas State, their upper deck? Where is it?
It's not there.
It's not there. We all brought up.
I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously I can't speak from anything because, well, we haven't seen any Mizzou footage from the College Football trailer. So, from my point of view, I can't speak anything because we haven't seen anything. And the first time we'll be able to see anything Mizzou related is when we actually get to play this game. But interesting to call attention to that the Red River rivalry is flipped and everything. Interesting. I'm hoping they got Mizzou right, please. We're in the SEC, goddammit. The best conference in college football.
These issues to our contacts at EA. They said they were already aware of these issues and they had already made the fix before the trailer even went out, which is a little confusing. Like, why would you release the trailer with issues you already knew about in game? I'm not sure. I'm not the one who made that decision, but it's nice to know that they got it fixed, I guess. But another example of the devs going far and beyond for the presentation is for Arkansas State. They got this waterfall in their stadium, which I didn't even know was a thing, but they got that in game. That's insane detail for a mid-major school, which shows you they took it seriously for all 134 teams in game. But that's enough about presentation. Let's move on to the mobs I am genuinely worried about and the ones I care about more than anything, which is Road to Glory and Dynasty. However, none of the developer deep dives are out yet. I'm under an NDA, so I have to be careful of what I can talk about. But let's start with Road to Glory.
The one that, if we're being honest, I love Dynasty and I'll be playing Dynasty, of course. I think I may have spoiled it that minimum the first Dynasty we'll be doing is Mizzou one. Then maybe we go into create a school or 1-2-star program and build them up. But minimum Dynasty, first Dynasty we'll be doing is Mizzou. But as much as I'm hyped about Dynasty and we'll be doing it, Road to Glory is more my alley. I more prefer creating a guy, get into college and everything, and either win the Heisman or win the college football national championship, whatever, and then take that guy and basically import them, even though you have to like do a lot of loopholes and everything, and put them in Madden and everything. But obviously, we don't play in Madden anymore because, well, we talked about it earlier. But in the college football 14 days, that was really fun. So Road to Glory is more my alley, personally, than Dynasty. But I do like both, and I want to play both.
I think a lot of people, including myself, are bummed about no high school and Road to Glory.
Yes. There is no high school and Road to Glory, which sucks. Because to me, like I said, I care more about Road to Glory than Dynasty. And from what I know, how Road to Glory is going to be, it's kind of a downgrade. It kind of sucks. From what I know, I'm sure you're going to talk about later in the video. But instead of being like a 1 or 2 star athlete and playing like 6 or 8, I don't know what the number was, high school games where each game if you play better, your star ranking, goes up, where, you start off as a 2-star recruit where, maybe you're getting recruited by like Arkansas State or Northwestern or whatever. And then if you play well enough in those high school games where you're now a 5-star recruit, now you're getting recruited by like the Michigans, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Texas, the LSUs of the world. Which was great. Like, it added a sense of immersion. Like, I have to play better if I want to go to the big dog schools, which was amazing. And apparently, with this, instead, you choose what star you want to be. Like, if you want to be a 2-star 2-star athlete in high school, well, that's just your program. You're not getting any games to, like, build it up or anything. And instead, if you want to be a 5-star, well, you just choose the setting and that's it. So it kind of sucks that you can immediately get recruited by the high programs as a 5-star because you choose it instead of working towards it, which kind of sucks.
And people keep making the joke that, like, how is it a road to glory without the road? Which is a funny way to put it. I will give them that. I don't know where people got this from, but there is some misinformation spread around that this is some sort of story mode or something. That is entirely false. I'll tell you why. And I think with Road to Glory, like I said in the title, I am worried, but it's honestly more because I think people are misunderstanding this mode entirely. I genuinely believe the core gameplay loop is better than people think. I know that might be crazy with no high school, so I know you might be skeptical, but I'll explain my thoughts. First off, this game is not heavy on cinematics. It is not a linear story mode like Longshot or something. I would describe College Football 25 Road to Glory as gameplay focused with light RPG elements. And from what I can tell, they took elements from NCAA 06, NCAA 11, and NCAA 14 while adding in modern elements like wear and tear and brand exposure, which is basically NIL under a different name. And the 3 games I mentioned that they got inspiration from were some of my favorite Road to Glory experiences, which is all the more reason why I'm optimistic for this game mode. But I do want to reiterate, no high school gameplay does indeed stink. I think we can all agree to that. And I know people really loved having the power fantasy of scoring like 8 touchdowns a game, increasing your star rating every week, and getting offers over time. That was fun. And I hope they bring that back sometime in the future. Like, I want to be competing for high school state championships. That was a good time. However, that system had its annoyances too. I did enjoy the high school games, but for probably like a game or two, and then it starts to get a little bit repetitive. Like 8 to 12 games before even starting the college career, I felt was a little bit too much. I think we should meet in the middle somewhere, like the high school playoffs I feel like was a good balance, but let me know in the comments below how much high school gameplay you want.
I think 4 to 6. I think 6 is the perfect mark because, yeah, maybe 8, 12, maybe too much, but I feel like 6 is the good middle ground benchmark for high school games because basically, yeah, the high school games, you're going to dominate. You're going to be better than, everyone else out there, which, yeah, they may feel still. They may feel boring, throwing for 900 yards and 8 touchdowns every game. But, I don't know. The reason why I personally like the high school games and Road to Glory aspect is because I start off as a low rating, and based on how I perform, sure, like the difficulty was easy and everything because you're able to dominate, but I still felt like I earned it. I still felt like I worked my way up and proved it to be recruited by the top programs. I didn't just choose, oh, I want to be a 5-star, so now I got recruited by all the programs without putting the work in first, right? I should start off at the small programs and not get any attention from the big schools, and only after I do well, I should then get attention from the big schools. That's what made the immersion of Road to Glory great. Like, if I'm playing like a 5-star, I should eventually get put in the 5-star category and get recruited by the 5-star schools. But if I'm not, then I shouldn't earn a 5-star rating. I shouldn't earn a 5-star rating just because I choose a setting. You should earn it.
Like being able to compete for the high school playoffs, I felt like that added to the lore and like the headcanon for me. However, I seriously do think that the new system has more potential than you think though, especially when we're talking about replayability and role-playing aspects, which I'll explain here. With the new system, we know that you can select between 2 stars all the way up to a 5-star, and your initial rating will be tied to your star rating. So if you're a 2-star, you're 65 overall, and you go all the way up the ladder. When you're a 5-star, you are a 79 overall out the gate. You can also select your recruit interests, just like a recruit would be in Dynasty mode. Do you want to care about your proximity to home? Do you want to care about your pro potential, your playing time, campus lifestyle, that kind of thing? Do you want to focus on brand exposure? So even though there is no high school gameplay experience, there is still a recruiting process. Like I mentioned, you could select your player interest, and that will narrow down the teams available. I think you would still have the option to commit to any team you wanted, but that doesn't mean you will be guaranteed any playing time everywhere. For example, if you walk on at Alabama as a 2-star player, you will be grinding for a long time to move up the depth chart. With the ability to transfer every season, it's going to make this Road to Glory experience feel fresh and new as well. Like you could start at a small school, and you can work your way up the ranks of teams while your player progresses, so it's going to feel natural. So when you're terrible, you can be at a low-rated school. When you're mid, you can be at a mid-rated school. And when you're elite, you can go to one of those top dogs. So it's like a natural progression that feels nice.
I just don't want it to feel like a participation trophy. I don't want it to feel too easy, right? Because let's face it, kids nowadays, they don't know the grind. They don't know what it was like to play the high school games, the Road to Glory, and college football like 12, 13, 14, whatever have you, right? Kids these days, they don't know what the college football games were like. And my main, callback, my main negative about the whole choose a star ranking is I don't want kids these days just to choose, oh, I want to be a 5-star at Alabama, and I get that ranking just because, oh, I choose a setting to do so. It's like, no, you have to earn it and everything. That's why, after you, go from a 2-star to a 5-star in high school games, there was still the thing about, oh, I'm, a 3rd string, or I'm a 2nd string, or 4th string, on the depth chart. And I have to go to practice. I have to, build coach trust and everything through practices to eventually be a starter, right? You shouldn't be a starter and 5-star recruit on Alabama just because you choose a setting to do so. Kids these days don't know the grind. We're in a participation trophy era.
And I don't think we can ever say that on a Road to Glory experience. You usually just choose one school and you're stuck there for eternity. I like change in career modes. However, I am not sure if teams are like recruiting you after you have already signed to a school though. So like if you're looking...
That's the first and only time we've seen a Mizzou appearance in all these college football videos. Just want to acknowledge that.
A transfer in year 2, I have no idea if teams are going to be courting you like they did in year 1. Is it like an automatic transfer thing? No clue. Wish I would have paid more attention. But the reason I believe that this system is good for role-playing and replayability is because in the old system of playing out the high school games, it was a little more difficult to control which star rating you would end up being. Especially if you wanted to be like a low star rating player, you'd have to like intentionally stink, which kind of broke the immersion for me. With this system where you like start out by choosing which star rating you want to be. You're going to have the option of role-playing whether you either want to have the long grind of an underdog 2-star recruit or have the immediate power fantasy of a 5-star right away. And once you are in college, I think the general gameplay loop I saw was actually awesome, and I don't see enough people talking about it. The gameplay loop has you managing GPA, health, which is tied to wear and tear, your training, which is tied to XP, and your brand, which is basically NIL. You'll notice some things I said earlier about this game taking inspiration from older games. NCAA 06 had minigames, and there's other great things from NCAA 06 that I can't talk about here under the NDA, so I'll move on. NCAA 11 had a weekly schedule where you had to manage your GPA. NCAA 14 had Coach Trust, and this game combines some of the great elements from older games that I loved, and it adds in the new elements of wear and tear, brand exposure, and transferring. So let's dive deeper. There's like 4 bars you gotta focus on with your weekly time. You can be academically ineligible if you don't focus on your schoolwork. Now, there is no interactive gameplay for quizzes or tests in the game, but you must keep on top of your studies in a time management sense. Or you won't be seeing the field until you get those grades up, similar to NCAA 11. Like, I became academically suspended in that game for a little bit in one of my Road to Glories.
Chat, let me know in the first Road to Glory we do, which most likely, no bias, might be us going towards Mizzou as a 5-star. Maybe, who knows. I feel like we will be academic ineligible just to see what happens, right? Like, can we get so academic ineligible where we have to, like, lose entire seasons, or we have to transfer to a low-tier program because our GPA is that bad? Like, can stuff like that happen? Right? Because, I mean, that's what happens, you know, in real life sometimes where, you know, kids, like, get recruited to, like, a, you know, Division I program or whatever, their grades fall apart so bad or whatever, and they have to go down to the JUCO, right? Like, can't something like that happen to us? I want to see, just for a science experiment, what happens if our GPA gets too low where, like, can they force our hand? It's like, nope, you've been transferred to this low-tier program because you're that bad. Or is your play that bad and you get transferred away, right? Like, I want to see all these, like, possible scenarios of if you played this bad or your grades are that bad or whatever, can this happen to you? Just for a simple thought experiment.
Not committing time to recovery could put your health at risk as the hits add up over the course of the year. And not committing time to training is going to limit your potential XP gains. And if you completely ignore brand exposure, you're going to be missing opportunities for game-changing sponsorships. I think one of the only examples we know of so far is, like, you can get like a cryogenic sponsorship that'll boost recovery permanently. So these are the RPG elements I was referring to. You can't max out each bar. You have limited time each week, so you're going to have to prioritize each time whatever you deem valuable. In each of the 4 categories has potential benefits if you focus on it fully and potential punishments if neglected. And I think some people were scared and clung to what was told to them about the 10 to 20 hour experience for this career mode, which, to be honest with you, I don't think is anything to worry about, because when we look at history, like the NCAA 14 Road to Glory experience, for example, I recently did a playthrough of that and I felt like it was about 10 to 20 hours, so it doesn't feel any different. I think they just want you to know it is shorter than a Dynasty experience, which who knows how long the typical experience for that takes. 10 to 20 hour experience basically tells me they're not trying to waste your time with long cinematics. They want you to dabble in the RPG mechanics, and they want you to get back on the field playing, which I think is the way it should be. I, for one, am happy about this. Like, I don't want long linear cutscenes with cringy dialogue or weird podcast clips where they're saying generic vague things about my player, like, wow, this guy is bad. He can get better, though.
Yeah. When it comes to the brand exposure aspect, I don't know, like, what sponsorships, what brands, you know, you can get associated with. Like, you know, for instance, you know, if I go to Oregon, can I get, like, don't they use Under Armour? Is it Under Armour or Nike? Shit. Let me look it up. It is Nike. Okay. Right. Like, if I go to, you know, Oregon, do I have the opportunity to get a Nike sponsorship? Right, stuff like that. So, like, what brands can you get for the brand exposure? But yeah, I think my biggest drawback when it comes to the brand talk, the NIL stuff, is like don't have these like long, drawn out 5-10 minute cutscenes where, oh, here's the representative from Nike, and in order to get a Nike sponsorship, you have to do these 3 or 4 things, and then you come back to them after you do those 3 or 4 things. Then you have to do these, 6 other things for us. It's like, okay, I don't care at that point anymore.
Threw like 800 yards and 9 touchdowns, you know what I mean? That seemed to plague a lot of sports games these days, so them avoiding it here, boom, hats off to you guys. Mike Straw also reported that text messages and unique events will be in the game that you can respond to and have different gameplay effects. These are not cutscenes, really. I would relate these to kind of like, in Madden 08 when they would send you text messages in Superstar mode. No cinematics or anything, so you don't have to worry about it being another forced linear path, but there are like decisions you can make, and the random events have consequences, both positive and negative based on your responses, and I think they said there's a little bit of RNG in that. I don't know. I think that is all I can say about that without getting in trouble here though, so we're gonna have to wait for the Road to Glory deep dive on that. But continuing on more in Road to Glory, it was also reported that position battles are now minigame based. Once again, going back to NCAA 06, we see that inspiration. You have to win 2 out of 3 minigames against the player you're trying to jump on the depth chart. What I found interesting about these is that you don't have the option to replay these, so if you fail, you don't get to cheese it until you win. Failing has consequences. Another interesting note here is that other players on the depth chart are also earning coach trust in the background. So if you're slipping up, throwing a zillion interceptions and play poorly, you could be benched in favor of the CPU player working his butt off behind you. So hopefully all of this put together, describing Road to Glory more in depth, gives you a clearer picture of what the mode actually is, and hopefully you can understand why I am so optimistic for the mode, despite it having no high school gameplay.
Chat, just like GPA following so much where maybe we had to get like force transferred out or whatever, maybe another thing we do, another path, is our coach trust fails so bad, we are the worst college football player in history where we throw a zillion interceptions every game, and see how bad it can get where, how bad on the depth chart can we get demoted, right? Like, can we get kicked off the team because we're playing that bad? That's something I want to test out.
If you're still not convinced, that's totally fine. This is only my initial impression of Road to Glory. It's not a final review of the mode. So it's perfectly fine to take my thoughts with a grain of salt, as I have not played the mode directly myself. It's just my interpretation of what I saw in the little PowerPoint they showed us. And once again, the dev deep dive will be coming later on, and that should explain everything more in depth than I ever could. Now let's move on to everyone's favorite mode, Dynasty mode. And I am also worried about this as well. And I think the things I am worried about are the things that came out that we already know are not in the game. Let's start off with no draft class.
Anywhere on whether you can expect at sport draft classes. Oh, no need to add to this Dynasty post, no draft class at sport because the actual players in the game and Madden licensing is different, licensed through the NFLPA, NFL Players Association.
I know, it's unfortunate that it's not there, but I think it's not really game ruining for me. Like, I understand EA couldn't put this in the game because of the
EA Sports College Football 25 will be available for purchase in July, marking the first time since 2013 that the game company will be releasing a college football video game. It paused production on the previous iteration of its college football video game, NCAA Football, after citing a lawsuit which former players who previously were in compensation for their name, interest, and likeness, and which I think is another can of worms. I think that whole stuff is annoying, right? I mean, college football, NCAA, they make billions of dollars a year. Coaches get paid millions of dollars a year with all these sponsorships, all these brand deals, College Game Day sponsored by Home Depot, all this stuff, and all these like big megastars in college football, whatever. They don't get a penny when the reason why we're watching college football is not because of the coach. It's because of the players. They deserve their cut because, well, we're watching for them, not the coach. Anyway.
The NFL licensing right. Moving these players over to Madden, there's some like legal issues, especially now that they're signed through NIL. Back in the day when it was just QB number 3, it could have been anybody, you know, wink wink. But that's also one of the reasons why this game went away for 11 years. Like moving them over to Madden, it's a potential lawsuit, which is a reason why it has me fearful that we won't be seeing this feature in future college football video games. And this ties along with massively limited player editing, which I feel genuinely stinks from a player perspective. I think we all understand why with the potential legal troubles here as well. Like players that opted out, like Arch Manning, we can't allow you to create that. We get that. And when I was talking to the devs, obviously they are bummed that they can't give us full customization. They don't want to make it so you can't be changing players' names. But the reality here is that having limited player editing is one of the few reasons that this game can even exist. And after 11 years without NCAA football, I will accept this sacrifice for me to be able to play right now.
Chat, is that a big deal? Is that a huge con you can't have draft classes? Because like, oh, these players, you know, opted, you know, out of the, you know, name, image, and likeness, you know, they're not allowed to be in the college football game, whatever. But, you know, it's similar to like, you know, 2K, for instance, where Charles Barkley has never signed, you know, his likeness to, you know, 2K since like, you know, he retired and everything. But does that stop you from making draft classes or making a roster with Charles Barkley in the game with his like created face or whatever? No, people still do it. So what's stopping people from doing the same thing with college football players who opted out? You know?
Obviously, I am not thrilled that we have limited player editing in the game. It makes it extremely difficult from a content perspective. It lowers creativity. And I think this has me more worried than anything because it's like totally out of our control and there doesn't seem to be hope of it coming back. But let me break down more specifically of what I know of what is limited in the editing. We know for a fact you cannot edit opted-in players.
Out the old. Despite some noticeable absences, EA did share new details on recent additions to the college football landscape. Most notably, the transfer portal and NIL deals. The development team explained that NIL, which in real life allows players to make money on sponsorships and other deals, was tough for them to implement in Dynasty mode, but did say that will be an influential component in the mode. Road to Glory, meanwhile, will allow players to sign NIL deals of their own. Once again, what sponsorships, what companies are there? Who knows? EA teased that depending on the NIL deal your player obtains, it can influence things like attributes for your character. However, college football's developers did not elaborate further.
Names. You cannot bring in opted out players' names as well for obvious reasons. I don't think you can edit opted in.
You'll not be able to edit the attributes of real life players in the rosters. You can edit created players, but there supposedly will be blocks to keep from making a player like Arch Manning who did not opt in the game. Interesting.
Players' attributes, which is an interesting choice, but I think you can edit their equipment. And I can't remember, but I don't know if you could create a player from scratch, which if that's the case, that would be awful. However, you can definitely create a player in like Road to Glory. And I believe you're able to create a player in Team Builder, which is all the more confusing. So I hope they touch more on the player editing stuff in the Dynasty Deep Dive. But another thing is you can't create a prospect either, which is
the transfer portal also comes into play as this has been a major aspect of college football in recent years. Some would say a detriment, but that's another can of worms I'm not getting into. Players can leave each season. Coaches will have the opportunity to try and get them to stay. This also goes for jumping into the NFL early. It's worth noting that due to the nature of NIL deals in their current state, draft classes will not be able to be exported to Madden. The development team has also confirmed that creating this prospect will not be in the initial release, but plans to integrate down the road. That's... Why is that not allowed in the initial release? And something that'll come back like in a future patch. You can't create a player? That's interesting.
It's another disappointing thing about the game. I thought this one should have been a no-brainer in the game. Like, why can't I put a generic name on a guy and make him whatever overall and recruit him? You know, what's the deal with that? Why can't I make Will Horton in the game? Unless there's a Will Horton that opted out, you know? You better believe I'm going to be giving them hard feedback on this. I want this back in the game. I will pound the table for create a player if it's not there. I guess one silver lining here is they used machine learning for the player faces in game. So not a single player, as far as I know, was scanned into the game. This like AI model used pictures of the players to get a somewhat close to their real life counterpart. Not an exact one, obviously. We all saw that Quinn Ewers picture. The devs described this as generic plus. So obviously it's not one-to-one, but it's relatively close. So it does kind of make them look like cartoonish versions of themselves, but I think it'll make it more naturally when you fit in all the generic players in there. And I think the best part about this is I am under the impression that randomly generated recruits will be taking data from all the other faces to create fresh ones. I can't really confirm it, but I think there's going to be more varied faces than we have ever seen before, simply because this model has a huge amount of data to pull from. Now, could this lead to potential weird faces and other issues that we haven't seen before? I have no idea.
EA on face is interesting. Because as we know, this has been a problem since, maybe Madden 20 or something like that. When it comes to, create a player in franchise mode or create a player in general, you select the skin tone and you go from, like, let's say, if I'm not mistaken, you choose the darkest skin tone, like skin 1. You go to the face creator. It gives you, 4 or 5 different face presets. And they've all been copy and pasted from previous years. But then if you, simply make the skin tone light or something like that, you now have 20 different faces. And there's a couple of repeats in there. So, as far as EA having a variety of faces, I'm taking it with a grain of salt. I need to see it to believe it.
And it's something we should keep an eye out for. But in theory, all of this sounds pretty cool, and I'm open to trying new things. Also, a small anecdote, I appreciated that the faces that they showed us actually look like 18 to 22-year-old kids, instead of like balding 30-year-old men that we would see from NCAA 14. No disrespected to the old heads out there, but they kind of broke the immersion for me from time to time. With all of that being said, I still liked what I saw from Dynasty mode. I still need to be careful with what I say here, though. I'll do what I did with Road to Glory and talk about the things that the game reminded me of on first look. However, keep in mind that I do not have gameplay experience with Dynasty. I can only talk about the presentation they showed us once again. And what they showed us, recruiting reminded me of games pre-NCAA 14, I think is a good way to describe it. So you have limited time each week and you can make pitches to players. Like you can send a player a DM, you can send the house, that kind of thing. So not the point system from NCAA 14. I can't really speak to how any of this feels because I haven't played the mode myself yet. But my fears that I brought up to the devs just seeing it in theory is this going to be tedious? Is it going to take a long time? And they said, no, it shouldn't, because they said it was basically, quote unquote, set it and forget it most of the time. However, it's tough for me to get a read on this because at first glance, it seems like if you want to maximize recruiting, you will still need to put in the effort each week, which I can't really put an estimation on how long that would take, but we thought it would take longer than NCAA 14 just on first glance, but I can't really confirm that. But moving on, the transfer portal.
When it comes to recruiting, because if I'm not mistaken, this was not a thing in, the latest, college football games that we got, 13, 14, etc. If I'm not mistaken, you were not able to, send your offensive coordinator to this state and recruit this player or, recruit this position, and your offensive coordinator to recruit this position, this state. You kind of just, as the coach, as the one in charge of the Dynasty mode, you were in charge of recruiting everybody, doesn't matter what state they're in. So I wonder, I'm assuming you send your offensive coordinator to this state to recruit, let's say quarterback. You send your, defensive back coach to, let's just say Georgia and recruited defensive backs in Georgia or something like that. Like, I assume you have that ability. Because if so, that would be really weird because, that's what happens in real life, for years is, when Nick Saban was the coach of Alabama, he wasn't going to every single recruit in the country and recruiting them. No, he sent one of his assistant coaches to, take care of the recruiting because going to every single state and recruiting every single player is just not realistic.
Well, it seems like it's going to be a nice feature in this game. It's being slotted in at a specific time near the end of the year, so it should add a fresh addition to recruiting that we've never seen before. And there's some cool tidbits in there, so like recruits will remember the...
To be as realistic as possible, athletes would need to be able to transfer more than once. But if roster management in a video game really looked exactly like it did in real life, college football, it would be too overwhelming to be fun for the majority of players. I'm told that EA is planning on allowing athletes to transfer more than once, realism, but is also working to figure out the right balance to make roster management approachable and fun. I mean, not every single college football player transfers more than once. Like, some do, of course. Of course, there's exceptions. But, you have examples like, Joe Burrow, for instance, where, he started out at Ohio State and then went to LSU, and that's where he finished his career. But then you have someone like, Cam Newton, for instance, where he started out at Florida, he then transferred down to a JUCO, and then transferred to Auburn. So there's 3 schools right there. So, but no, not every single college football transfers more than once. Like, there's a handful of them, I would say, majority of them transfer once and they stick there the rest of the time. So, I don't know about the realism, but every single transfer does it more than once. Like, no, not really. There's exceptions, of course, but there's a handful of them that transfer once and they stick with that school, right? Like, Jalen Hurts started out at Alabama and he transferred to Oklahoma, and that's where he finished his time,
progress you made on them from their initial high school recruiting. So a transfer portal player will remember if you were number 3 on his high school board, and you will get an edge in transfer portal recruiting because of that in the future. So there is an incentive to stay within the top 3 of a guy, even if you're not necessarily going to land him in year 1.
That is cool. I like that. That adds the sense of immersion and the replayability factor because, I would say that's something that was missed because obviously there was no transfer portal, so I can't really say this is a con. But just from my experience of playing Dynasty mode, when you were hard recruiting somebody, but you finished like 2nd or 3rd, or you dropped down below the top 3 on a recruit or whatever, damn, I missed him. And then you never thought about him, you never remembered him again because, I couldn't recruit him as a freshman, so there's no point in recruiting him or following up on him or see what happens in his career. It's now just, okay, now let's go to this new, freshman class, whatever. So for you to stay active on a guy, even if you miss out on him initially, is really cool.
It could pay dividends later. And I like small details like that. It makes it kind of fun. And this is why I'm hopeful for this game mode despite all the disappointing lack.
Like, once again, let's say you are a 2-star program. Let's just say Arkansas State, for instance. I don't even know if Arkansas State's a 2 or 3-star, but that's just the first school that came on. A low-tier program, right? No disrespect to being Arkansas State, but just trust me on this anecdote, hypothetical. You are running a dynasty at Arkansas State, and you are recruiting a, let's say 3-star wide receiver, right? And initially, he's with you. It looks like he's going to go to your program, and he'll be a top recruit for your program because you're starting out small and you're building up to a powerhouse. Well, then he has a great game in like the state championship, whatever, and he goes and becomes a 4-star recruit, and now all of a sudden he's got like Alabama in his arsenal. Well, he's going to commit to Alabama because for the name recognition, the draft potential, you're more likely going to choose Alabama over Arkansas State. So he goes to Alabama. You miss out on the recruit and everything because they go to the bigger dog. Well, now he's at Alabama, and every single player he's with is a high 5-star, and he's clearly out of his element because now he's going to a program where, he's outclassed, out-recruited, and every single person he's now better than, so he doesn't get any playing time. So now he transfers because, I went to Alabama because it was a high program. Well, now I'm not getting any playing time, so I transfer. And then here's you swooping in again, like, oh, you remember us at Arkansas State? How about you come to our program now, be a top elite prospect? And he comes down to you. So I like that. I like it.
Of player editing. If they nail the small details, this mode should be awesome. And visually, I will say the menus look pretty sweet. I can't elaborate any further, but you'll see it when the Dynasty Deep Dive comes out. I'll quickly touch upon the skill tree stuff. It looks like the deepest skill tree we've ever seen in a college football video game. I can't really break it down much more than that.
Just don't make them broken like X Factors. I know it's EA, but I see 360, 50-50, adrenaline, aftershock, backspin balanced. Just don't make them broken like, Patrick Mahomes, like Bazooka X Factor, where, all you had to do was complete 3 passes in a row so people just do checkdown passes or quick slants. And then, that activates Patrick Mahomes' Bazooka X Factor ability, so now he can throw 30 yards further than everyone else in the game. So that's what people did. That got so broken and repetitive. So I'm hoping this is not that. I'm trying to see if any of them sound broken. Let's see. Magician. I hope that doesn't sound broken. So yeah. So that's my main hope. Don't make these X Factors where their abilities are just so broken overpowered and you are at a disadvantage if you don't have them, because that will get really annoying.
But it seems to be they're going to be pushing us to different play styles, to more than just filling up the recruiting page. We'll see how that actually plays out in game, but I'm excited to try out something new. And also, I felt like, just on my initial impressions, that coordinators are going to play a bigger impact than before, because you can't maximize every tree. So what you're bad at, the coordinators can lift you up, and what they're good at, you can fill in the gaps with your own skills, that kind of thing. Again, all of this will make more sense in the Dynasty Deep Dive. Also, I can't speak to the simulation engine. I know a lot of people have questions about that, which obviously could make or break this mode, which is why I'll need to wait until I can get some deep hours into this game to give a full review. Until then, I can't have a full opinion on Dynasty mode. And other small things, Dynasty mode has things you would expect from real life, like the 12-team college football playoff, which is coming to college football this year. We're actually going to be seeing it in game before we see it in real life, which is going to be weird. But I think that's all I can say about Dynasty mode right now. I should move on before I get in trouble. Now let's move on to a feature that seems to have a lot of people worried. But I'll do a reverse on you. I'm not actually worried about this feature, at all. I actually think it has tremendous potential if tuned properly, of course, and that is wear and tear.
Chat, are you worried about wear and tear? Me personally, I'm kind of worried about wear and tear. I just don't want it to be broken, and I don't want it to get really repetitive and annoying, right? My biggest fear with the wear and tear system is, I shouldn't have to sub out my starters, at halftime every single game because they are now too tired, they're now too injured, and they now have a risk of injury. So, I got to bench all my starters and, bring in my, third string guys to finish up a game, especially if it's I'm a low tier program trying to get an upset at a top tier program. Having to bench your starters for your third stringers, especially in a situation like that when you're trying to pull off an upset, will get very annoying, and I feel like, well, the game made me lose and I didn't want to, but of course my bench players are not going to be as good as my starters. So I don't want it to be aggressive and to the point where I feel like I have to, new quarter, so I guess I got to bring my bench guys in now. Don't make it so punishing. I feel like that's my main worry.
People seem to be afraid of this feature. I understand that the Madden fatigue system has left a bad taste in people's mouths. I hated it too. Like, half your starting lineup shouldn't be off the field with no explanation after just like a couple of plays. That's like not a fun gameplay experience at all. It doesn't really make any sense. However, everyone seems to be fundamentally misunderstanding wear and tear from my perspective. And there's a reason I think wear and tear has potential to be game changing and one of the best features we've ever seen in a football game, period, if done right. And I'll explain why. Many people incorrectly believe wear and tear is a fatigue system. It's not. In their heads, they are fearful of their players constantly getting hurt and leaving the field all the time. And I can assure you this is not the case either. First off, wear and tear is only a physical damage system, meaning that only contact with other players will have an impact on your player's wear and tear. Fatigue is a completely separate system. That is only a conditioning system. That is impacted by exerting more energy on a given play. So let's say you have a scenario where your running back runs for 40 yards, but you are completely untouched by the defense and you run out of bounds. This will have no impact on your wear and tear because you weren't touched. It will impact your fatigue since you ran farther. Obviously, like moving at all will impact your fatigue. And we know that skill moves will use more energy too. However, let's change the scenario. Let's say your running back trucked 3 guys in the process of that 40-yard run. This will impact your player's wear and tear because you were taking contact from other players. But this does not necessarily mean your player is going to be injured. When I spoke to the lead gameplay dev, I mentioned my fears of, is this going to be players getting hurt all the time? Are people going to be annoyed with this feature? He said, this system does not increase injuries necessarily. And I'll explain further. The scenarios where your players are getting hurt are only if you're like being reckless and constantly ignore the warning signs. The lead gameplay dev was like, injuries are kind of like normal in the RNG sense. So like you can still have the fluke injury every now and then, but none of it is more than usual. The punishment wear and tear mainly inflicts is not injuries, but it is the attribute downgrades to specific body parts. Let's say your quarterback throws 50 times a game, throwing the ball a lot. This has no impact on wear and tear and fatigue. Your arm's not going to get more tired if you're just throwing the ball. However, if your quarterback is getting hit on these throws, it will impact him, obviously because he's making contact with other players. Let's say a lot of those hits are on his throwing arm. That could lead to attribute downgrades, specifically in throw power and throw accuracy, which in that case, it makes sense to my brain. Getting hit one time does not mean your players are going to need to leave the field though, but there is a consequence of the hit. Basically think players getting banged up slowly over the course of the game. So like I said, it's not like constantly off the field and always injured. That would be annoying as crap. I would not like the feature if that was the case. I think that this system really wants to encourage players to have smarter, safer gameplay styles like a real coach would recommend real life players do. But what does this look like in practice? Some examples of trying to be safe is sliding with your quarterback. That's a good idea to avoid hits. Throwing the ball away to avoid sacks. Running the ball out of bounds to avoid contact. And the dev told me directly as well, using the right bumper to protect the football before taking a hit.
I think it also comes down to situational, right? Like, if I make a, beef Derrick Henry like running back in, I max out the strength and everything, and, I make him a total, bruising running back where his whole job, his whole ability is just not to have a ton of strength. His whole job is just to be able to truck people and just bully people and bulldoze them, right? In my opinion, with the abilities or whatever it's called in College Football 25, but you know what I mean, the non-X factors, we'll say. Not only that, the X factors I have equipped are non-X factors, and because my style for the player is a bruising, hard-nosed bulldozing running back, the wear and tear system should not impact me as much because that's my play style. However, if I'm someone who is way more agile and not as, big, bulky and everything, then the wear tear system should be way more severe because I'm not as bulky and not as bruising as the other guy I just mentioned. So it should be down to situational, where if you have a, bruising running back, you expect to be able to bulldoze people because, well, that's why you got him in. But on the other hand, a guy who's not that kind of, system and everything, not that kind of running back, you would not want to bulldoze him a lot. So to me, it comes down to situational, not a one size fits all.
will lower the impact of the hit on the ball carrier. So in my head, I kind of find this to be awesome, because if the system is tuned properly, it really pushes you to play realistic football. And there's still a path to play like Derrick Henry barreling into players if you want. However, there are specific abilities that you'll probably want to protect yourself against wear and tear to make that play style viable. But if you have like a super skinny, skin and bones quarterback trying to truck linebackers twice his size, there's going to be some obvious consequences. Like in past games, you can be reckless and scramble all around if you want, and like it was only a fumbling risk. Now there's attribute punishments for being reckless.
I also wonder if, when it comes to the wear and tear system, I assume difficulty plays a factor, right? Because I assume the difficulties they're just going to bring in from the old college football games where it went like what? Freshman, and I can't remember the other tiers, but it went all the way from freshman to Heisman. Heisman was like the veteran, Hall of Fame difficulty from 2K and everything. I would imagine, if I'm playing on freshman difficulty or whatever, the wear and tear system is not as severe. The bars don't go up that quickly. Now, I go to the Hall of Fame, Heisman difficulty, the highest tier, and I would expect the wear and tear bars to be way more severe and to have way more of an increase because, I'm playing a higher difficulty. I would imagine it's also tied to what difficulty you're playing as. I would hope so. There should be a difference.
Another attribute downgrade I know specifically of is if your legs get damaged, they have potential to lower change of direction and acceleration, which also makes sense to my head. Like if your legs are sore, you won't be as quick as when you're fresh. The attributes, tying them to each body part, it feels logical, which is another reason this system has me really intrigued. Of course, I only have a small sample size in a few Play Now games, and I didn't notice a massive impact necessarily in the games we played. It seems like this system is designed more for the longer playthroughs and like Road to Glory and Dynasty. So over the course of the season, it is something to monitor. And I find that this system wants players to have a balanced play style by not spamming the same play. They want you to spread the ball around. And if you really want to be on top of it, get your players some rest. Get some reps for your backup every now and then. And the ways to recover your player's health with wear and tear, you can take your player out of the game, rest him for a few plays. Calling timeouts will give some recovery. At halftime, he'll get some recovery, and in between weeks. But if you hated everything I said about this system and you still don't want it, I think there's a setting to turn it off. But seriously, I don't think you should be worried about it making everyone more injured. That doesn't seem to be what it's meant to be at all. But there are some stories of like a quarterback like having his overall lowered by like 40 points or something. I did not witness this with my own eyes. This is an anecdote from somebody else. I don't know what kind of gameplay experience he was doing, but if it's like out of control and tuned poorly, then it could be a bad system. But I don't think I noticed it in my gameplay experience. And finally, I want to talk about abilities. So my initial fears for abilities were I didn't want them to be like Madden X Factors. Those.
Yes. Didn't I say that earlier? Where I don't want the abilities, because isn't there like 60 of them or something, that long list? Don't make them like X Factors, like Patrick Mahomes, like Bazooka from like Madden 20, where all you had to do was just do like, 2 or 3 check down passes to like get 3 pass completions in a row. And now all of a sudden, Patrick Mahomes, like Bazooka ability activated. So now you can throw like 20 yards further than what you could before, which is just annoying.
Literally broke the game by hard forcing an outcome, which is kind of stupid. My fears quickly vanished though when the devs assured me that abilities in College Football 25 have no guarantees. They made that very, very clear. And these are only situational stat boosts, and these can be lost entirely if a player gets cold. I think it's closer to something like 2K badges. So starting at bronze, going up to platinum, you can't earn a certain tier unless you have a high enough attribute.
Huh. Okay. I do like that, though. I mean, I may harp on, 2K's, like, bad system the last few years, especially in, 2K24 and everything. But I do like the system as much, shit, everything that I give 2K, which I feel like is deserved and warranted. This is something that I do agree with, that I do like. That if you have a high attribute, you should be rewarded with the highest tier of badges because, you spent the attribute points to have a high, rating and everything, so you should be rewarded for it. You shouldn't have a 60 and then have gold or Hall of Fame badge. That doesn't make any sense.
anyway. So basically, it just means like if you're a good player, you're going to be playing like a good player, like kind of like your attributes. I am hopeful for abilities. They look pretty fun. I would say my only fear with...
But my problem is, this has come from someone who is a 2K veteran, is every year Mike Wayne, everyone else says that, attributes matter, badges are just the ice on the cake, the cherry on top and everything. Attributes are more important, is what they always say. But then we get the game, we play the game, and guess what? Badges are the thing that matters more than anything. Badges are what gets you to be a good player versus a not good player. Attributes are an afterthought. You don't care about attributes. The only thing you care about is getting badges to a certain tier, right? You don't care about, when you're in the player builder, right? You don't care about having, 90 strength on your guy. You care about having golden move enforcer or 95 strength to get Hall of Fame move enforcer. You don't care about the attribute. You just care about upgrading your attributes, decreasing your attributes just to get a certain badge tier. And that's not how it should be. Badges should not be the be-all and end-all. And I'm hoping for 2K25 they can finally get it right. But I'm taking it with a huge grain of salt because 2K has promised that for the last few years, and, well, we know what we got.
Them is I would hope they don't completely like gatekeep animations, if that makes sense. I want everybody to be able to do everything. Like I said, they said it was only a stat increase and not an ability thing, but we'll see if that's true in the actual game. I can't really confirm that. But that's all I have to say about abilities right now. And there's obviously still massive amounts of information to come about this game. I'm excited for it. So if you want to hear more in the upcoming weeks from all the dev deep dives, like we still got to talk about Road to Glory presentation, Dynasty, all of that good stuff. So if you want to stick with me and learn more about the game, consider subscribing. But closing thoughts, you probably started this video thinking I hated the game, but that couldn't be further from the truth. College Football 25 obviously isn't a perfect game, but despite all of the things that worry me, all of the flaws, I still thought that this game was damn good on first impressions, which is why I said my initial impression on Twitter and my community post was absolutely incredible. And my personal anecdote, I believe that this is the best development team I've ever seen at EA. Like, it's not even close, especially when you factor in...
I mean, that's not saying much. Like, let's face it. What is the EA team looking like at Madden, right? What do they do? What are they looking like? Because, once again, I don't play Madden for the last few years for this reason. But in my experience, from what I hear, they just copy and paste the same code, the same broken animations, the same broken mechanics, the same game-breaking stuff year after year, and all they care about is just bringing in a new card pack animation for Ultimate Team, because that's all they care about, because it's a gambling simulator. So, saying it's the best gameplay team at EA isn't saying much.
And they have guys that worked on older NCAA football games, college football revamp guys. They've got guys from 2K and various other sports games. So truly, I am very optimistic about this game, but they still have to earn my final opinion. So we'll see if EA can stick the landing, so to speak. But thanks again.
Okay, cool. So chat, what do y'all think about College Football 25? Are you getting it? Are you excited? Are you worried? I would say, after hearing that, I'm probably the same viewpoint I had before when we first reacted to the College Football 25 trailer and everything. How I am cautiously optimistic. Because it is EA at the end of the day, and, there's every chance that EA could make this another gambling simulator, right? So I am cautiously optimistic with what this game is all about. I'm still going to get it. I'm still going to stream it on launch and everything. As you can see, we know what we're going to do. But I would say I'm cautiously optimistic with what the game has in store and everything. I'm not trying to get too amped excited and everything, but I am looking forward to release. I will be playing it. Now, will we be playing it past the first week of launch? Will we be playing this, months down the road? That all depends on how good the game is, right? So, EA, you got my attention for College Football 25. For the first week on launch, I feel like I'm the same with everyone else. You got our attention for the first week. Can you keep me playing through the month of July? Or am I already giving up, like, I don't really care about playing college football anymore, right? So that's my biggest question. Can they get us to play it for more than a week on launch because everyone's hyped about it? If they can do that, great. So that's my main worry. So I'm cautiously optimistic about this game. It's all about, I hear good things. I'm also hearing some negative things and concerns I've shared throughout my reactions. So to me, it's show me what you got.